I live in one of the wettest parts of the country, in one of the wettest countries in the world, with rain on average a little less than once every 2 days. Only a few months ago, Scotland and vast parts of the north of England were flooded, and despite that, here in Cornwall, we had a hosepipe ban for 9 months last year. More recently, a spate of cryptosporidium outbreaks in Devon and London meant some residents were told to boil all their water. Our rivers are overflowing with literal poo, and beaches up and down the country are no longer safe to swim in. Things are already collapsing. Now, all right, this isn't quite the dire drought situation of some US locations that thought it was a good idea to build a city in the desert. We aren't at the stage of needing water to be trucked in yet. But it's not just droughts that can threaten your water supply, so water preps for a whole variety of situations should be on your list. I would argue they should be the very first thing you tackle when prepping. So join me today on Earthwise Survivor, where we talk Water Preps 101. Like any prep, resilience is the name of the game here, and that means being prepared for a variety of situations in a variety of ways. First up is the basic emergency water supplies. You should cycle through these regularly, and of course, they aren't going to last you very long. But both the CDC and the UK government, which recently published its own emergency preparedness advice, recommend 1 gallon or just under 5 litres per person per day, 3 days minimum, but 2 weeks recommended. 2 litres per person per day is an absolute minimum just for drinking. 5 litres is going to let you cook and wash a little easier too. So for our family of 3, that's 9 1-gallon bottles minimum, and that's for 3 days. Now these are pretty cheap, so your only real concern here is the storage space. Bottled water like this will easily last 2 years. But you don't need to buy water if you already have drinkable good tap water. Just get whatever food safe liquid containers that you have and fill them up. They'll last at most 6 months safely. Next up is a water bob. I have no idea why it's called that, but these are quick to deploy, one-time use storage containers when you know some sort of disaster is on the way that's going to make the water undrinkable. And basically, it's a big bag that you put in your bath and fill ahead of time with drinkable water. Now they can store up to around 100 gallons, so that's your 2 weeks sorted easily. More than enough for any kind of emergency, but at around $35 each, and again, one-time use, this is not a long-term solution. Also, if you end up keeping the water longer than expected, you really ought to use a purification tablet. It's handy to keep those around anyway. These are usually chlorine-based and will keep away any harmful bacteria, but they won't filter out viruses or particles. If you have access to water that isn't drinkable, then of course a life straw or water filter is an option, which is a lot more long-term, but ultimately also of limited lifespan and requires replacement filters eventually. Although having said that, an expired filter is still going to be better than the alternative of no water and death. A single life straw, which is probably the most well-known filter brand, lasts for up to 4,000 litres, which is 5 years of drinking water for one person, so that's plenty. And those cost less than about $30, £30. For more convenience and longer lasting, a gravity-fed system like this, which also has replacement filters, costs around £100 to £150, though this is rated to 18,000 litres. So more than enough drinking water for a family of 3 or 4 for a few years. And again, grab a couple of spare filters, you could be sorted for a very long while. But you should know that water filters like these won't desalinate salt water, so you can't drink from the sea with them, nor will they remove viruses. So if it's a waterborne plague that's taken down society, you'll need another plan. Boiling, of course, is the tried and tested option, which you should probably do as well as filter if you're really worried. A rolling boil for 1 minute at normal elevations will kill most pathogens. In terms of radioactive water, it's not actually the water that's radioactive, it's the particles of contaminants inside it. Now, any of these filters will reduce the number of radioactive particles in the same way that they will remove any other kind of particle by filtering it out. But that's not going to fully protect you. Distillation, that is boiling and then condensing the steam, is another method you can use to remove further radioactive particles, but again, that won't get everything. There are also some filters that claim to remove radiological components, such as the safe shell line. But I think more realistically, surviving a nuclear blast where the water is irradiated in the longer term is probably not going to happen. I'm not dismissing this to say it's an unlikely emergency event, just that you're unlikely to survive it regardless of how much prepping you do for it. And of course, it's not just drinking water you need to think about. If you're growing food or have animals, you're also going to need a lot of water outdoors. Now, I've heard there are some places in the US where it's actually illegal to do rainwater catchment, which is utterly insane to me. But luckily, there's none of that madness here in the UK. So if you're not already, you absolutely should set up some water butts. In fact, you can usually get 1 or 2 for free or heavily subsidized from your local water supplier. They do want you to save water after all. Oh dear, what are you doing now? However, during a prolonged summer drought, this alone isn't going to be enough to stop your garden from dying or your cucumbers from wilting. So if you have the space, I'd suggest looking into IBC storage instead. These are second use washed intermediate bulk containers, and they hold up to 1,000 litres compared to about 300 litres of your typical rainwater catchment system. The most common type are the semi-translucent white ones, but you should avoid those and try to source black ones instead, otherwise you may find algal growth on the inside. If you do have a white one, covering it up with black plastic wrap or specially designed black covers is also an option. Try to keep them in the shade unless you want an outdoor shower for the summer, because they can get super hot, which your plants really won't appreciate. In terms of cost, we were able to source some of these locally for under £100 each, including delivery. Then you'll want some fittings for whatever you're working with. We have about 5 of these dotted around now. Some using standard diverter kits, as you can see here, same as the water butts. Others using top entry adapters, which have a filter bag fitted. I much prefer this top entry one because the entire flow of water is then captured rather than a trickle being diverted. The problem is that during very high flow, the diverter kits are overloaded. They're designed to be. It's just a very small hole inside and the rest just washes away. The hole can also get blocked pretty easily. So this method ensures that you capture everything. And to be honest, during last summer's drought in the UK, when the hosepipe ban was in place, we only had 2 IBCs and a couple of water butts. We still ended up empty by the end of that drought. So we made the decision to at least double our capacity and a bit more. Lastly, of course, the best option is to secure your own water source. Now, we're lucky enough to have both a river and a spring at the end of our garden. I say we're lucky, but that's one of the reasons we bought this place. Though the water is high in heavy metals, so not great in the long term. So if you are looking to move, that's definitely something to consider. Usually a river would be a flood risk, but our house is elevated 20-30 meters up in that direction, so I think we're safe there. And I know this spring is technically drinkable because my neighbours are old enough to remember drinking from it when they would schlep up buckets of water from here every day for years before these properties were connected up to the main supply. So not only can it support life, it has done before and likely will again. All right, that's it from me today. I hope this proved helpful in some way, motivated you to prepare for your emergency water and showed you a few ways of doing it. I'm James Bruce. You've been watching Earthwise Survivor. Be prepared. Oh, now you want some, do you? Ooh. Okay, sorry, I was neglecting you. Oh! Ooh. Wow. Is that comfy? Yeah. Oh. What? Huh?